My parents gave my college fund, my inheritance, and even my bedroom to their golden child brother. Years later they expected me to rescue the family they destroyed. My parents used to tell everyone they had 2 children. The truth was they only raised one. My older brother, Daniel, was their golden child. I was simply the daughter who was expected to understand. When Daniel wanted a new gaming computer, my parents bought it. When he crashed Dad's car, they blamed the weather. When he failed college twice, they said the professors were unfair. But whenever I needed something, there was always the same answer. We can't afford it. I believed them until the day I accidentally overheard my parents talking. We'll use Emma's college fund, Dad said. Mom replied without hesitation, she'll understand. Daniel needs it more. I stood frozen outside the kitchen. My college fund. The money Grandma had been saving for me since I was born. Gone. That evening, I confronted them. You gave my college money to Daniel? Mom looked annoyed instead of guilty. He's your brother. That money was for my education. He needed it to start over. He dropped out twice. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Don't speak to your mother like that. I looked at both of them and quietly asked, what about my future? Mom shrugged. You're smart. You'll figure something out. Those words changed my life. I earned scholarships, worked 2 part-time jobs, and graduated with honors in accounting. Every holiday my parents asked the same question. Can you help Daniel with his bills? Can you lend him money? Can you let him stay with you? The answer was always no. Then Grandma passed away. She had always treated me and Daniel equally. After the funeral, I learned she had left each grandchild an equal inheritance. For the first time, I thought something in my life would finally be fair. I was wrong. A week later, my parents invited me over. Dad cleared his throat. We've already talked to the lawyer. I frowned. About what? Mom smiled as if she were doing me a favor. Daniel is getting both shares. I stared at her. What do you mean both? He's struggling. So am I. You're independent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Grandma wanted us to receive equal amounts. Dad folded his arms. Families help each other. No, I replied. Only I help this family. Neither of them answered. Because they knew I was right. I challenged the decision. The court upheld Grandma's will. I received exactly half of the inheritance she intended for me. My parents didn't speak to me for almost 3 years after that. Honestly, they did me a favor. Without the constant guilt and pressure, my life flourished. I became a financial consultant. Then a partner. Eventually I opened my own firm. I invested carefully, lived simply, and built a life I was proud of. Meanwhile, my parents continued rescuing Daniel from every bad decision. Failed business. They paid. Credit card debt. They paid. Car loan. They paid. Divorce. They paid. Every mistake became someone else's responsibility. Mostly theirs. Then one afternoon my phone rang. It was my mother. She was crying. We're losing the house. I drove over. Not because I planned to save them. Because I wanted to hear the truth. The house I grew up in looked neglected. Dad looked 10 years older. Mom's hands shook as she handed me a folder. Foreclosure papers. Daniel had convinced them to mortgage the house to invest in another business. The business collapsed. He disappeared. The bank wanted the house. Mom looked at me with desperate eyes. We don't have anyone else. I looked around the living room. Then toward the hallway. My old bedroom? Mom lowered her head. We gave it to Daniel after you left. I smiled sadly. I know. She looked surprised. I came home one Christmas. You told me there wasn't enough room for me anymore. So I booked a hotel. Neither of them remembered. I never forgot. Dad finally spoke. We made mistakes. No. You made choices. Silence filled the room. I was the child who had to understand. I was the child whose dreams could wait. I was the child who lost her college fund. My inheritance. My bedroom. And somehow, I was still expected to fix everything. Mom burst into tears. We're sorry. For the first time in my life. I believed they meant it. But apologies don't erase consequences. I spoke to the bank. Instead of paying off Daniel's debt, I negotiated to purchase the mortgage through one of my investment companies. My parents could stay in the house for the rest of their lives. The house could never be borrowed against again. When they were gone, it would be sold, and every rupee of profit would fund scholarships for young women whose education was at risk because someone believed a son deserved more. When Dad read the agreement, he quietly asked, "So our home will help girls go to college?" Yes. He nodded slowly. That's exactly what should happen. Months later, Daniel finally came back. He walked into the house expecting another rescue. Instead, Dad handed him a copy of the trust agreement. We have nothing left to give you. Daniel looked shocked. But I'm your son. Dad answered with tears in his eyes. And she's our daughter. We spent 30 years forgetting that. Daniel left angry. My parents never chased after him. For the first time, they let him face the consequences of his own choices. A year later, I attended the opening ceremony for the scholarship program. Its name was engraved on a stone outside the building. The Margaret Hope Scholarship for Young Women. Named after my grandmother. During my speech, I said, "Never teach a daughter that her dreams matter less than her brothers. One day, she may become the strongest person in the family, but she should never have to earn the love she deserved from the beginning." When the applause ended, I noticed my parents standing in the back. They weren't clapping. They were crying. Not because I had become successful, but because they finally understood what they had lost long before they almost lost their house. As I walked past them, my mother whispered, "We're proud of you." I smiled gently. Thank you. Years ago, I needed those words. Now they were simply a reminder that the greatest victory isn't proving your worth to the people who doubted you. It's building a life where their approval is no longer necessary.